Hi everyone! This video I'm going to be doing a deep dive into mania. I've talked about mania before on this channel, but I kind of want to go a little bit more in depth with it now. And if you are new here, my name is Kit and I have something called schizoaffective disorder, which is a condition where someone experiences symptoms of schizophrenia, such as delusions and hallucinations, but also symptoms of a mood disorder, either major depression or in my case, bipolar. And of course, because I have the bipolar type of the condition, I experience mania, which is what I'm talking about today. And so I'm going to be talking about what the criteria for mania and hypomania are, what it looks like in the real world, and why on earth you should care. And while the short version is that mania makes people do very impulsive things, there's also two different kinds of mania, which I've already mentioned them in this video, but mania and hypomania. And those things I just mentioned, mania and hypomania, well, they sound pretty similar and they have a lot of overlap, but there are two key differences that I can go over before I really dive deep into this whole thing. The first thing is severity, meaning that if the episode isn't ruining your life, it's probably hypomania. And the second thing is time, and this is different for everyone, but it's understood generally that if it lasts for months and months and months, it's mania, and if it lasts a few weeks, it's hypomania. Although the DSM goes into a little bit more detail on those time frames, and I'll get into that in this video. But before I go further and explain a little bit more about mania and hypomania, I want to talk about why you should care about mania at all. Why is what I'm saying important? Why should you watch the video? And this is the most important thing right here. It's all about education, because education is the cornerstone of eliminating stigma. A lot of people think mania is this crazy destructive thing, and that's it. But the whole point of me making this video is to raise awareness for the fact that mania is more than just destructive impulses. It's to show you that people who experience mania, it's not a choice, it's a chemical imbalance. And at the end of the day, people who experience mania are people just like everyone else. We are just like everyone else. And so if you care about reducing stigma that surrounds mental disorders, then you should care about mania, because being educated on this will help the efforts to eliminate stigma in the mental health community. So if we're gonna talk about mania, we kind of need to have the source material, which I conveniently have right here. Yes, this is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition text revision, aka the latest edition of this book. So I figured we would dive in literally to the nice little bipolar section where it lists mania and hypomania and all of that and go from there. And I do want to say, I know I have this book, I know it has all the stuff in it, but I am not a substitute for a medical professional. So if you have any questions about yourself or anything like that, talk to a doctor. And nothing in this video is medical advice. Thank you. So let's get started. So full mania is characterized by being manic for most of the day for a week or longer and having 3 of the following symptoms: inflated self-esteem and grandiosity. People who are in a manic state often think they are important or better than everyone else. Personally, when I'm manic, I think I'm hot. So yeah, enough said. Lack of sleep is another symptom. And I'm talking like sleeping maybe 2 to 4 hours a night and then still being fine the next day. That's if the person who's manic sleeps at all. Another thing that manic people do is they're talkative, and honestly, when I'm manic, I can't shut up at all. And racing thoughts so fast you can't keep up with them is something also a lot of people go through, and that can kind of be described as thinking on more than one track of thought. And being distracted easily is another big symptom that a lot of people who are manic experience, and it's basically very similar to that of ADHD, because I have friends who have ADHD and they've described how easily they get distracted, and it lines up quite a lot with how I get distracted when I'm manic. And the next thing is goal-directed activity, meaning that the manic person has a goal in mind and nothing will stop them, and their entire life is just like dedicated to that one goal. Like, just imagine going 150% in on something, and that's what this symptom is. And the final symptom is excessive involvement in actions with painful consequences. Examples of this include buying sprees, bad business decisions, and hypersexuality. But if someone has 3 of those things I just mentioned, has had it for a week or longer, and it's really messing with their life, then yeah, that's a manic episode. Now, hypomania, which is mania's less intense cousin that doesn't destroy your life as much. Now, of course, it can still be damaging, but it's not nearly as intense as the mania I described earlier. So the higher energy state associated with hypomania has to last at least 4 days, with the person experiencing it having felt it most of the time during those 4 days. And like mania, there is a list of things you have to have 3 of in order to count for diagnosis. And you might think I'm going to list even more criteria, but you would be wrong, because the same list of stuff that was found in diagnosing a manic episode is the exact same list that's found diagnosing a hypomanic episode. So instead of repeating everything that I just said a few minutes ago, let's just talk about the differences between the two. Hypomania is extremely similar to mania, except that mania tends to really mess with occupational and social functioning, can require hospitalization, and is experienced for far longer than hypomania. I've been hypomanic way more than I've been manic, and I can tell you there is a difference between the two, even if they have the same symptoms up front. Hypomania for me is basically designing and making a cosplay in less than a week. That's the goal-directed activity. Mania is, oh dear God, I went too fast. My sewing lines are not straight anymore. Oh my God, I need to go buy more fabric, go buy more thread. Ooh, is that a zipper that I want? Can I make that for another project? And it's just, the cycle continues. And so how does this relate to schizoaffective disorder? So mania is only part of the bipolar subtype of schizoaffective disorder. In the manic episode that the person who's schizo is experiencing it has to line up with the exact same manic episode criteria found in bipolar 1 disorder. And of course, when full manic states are possible, full hypomanic states are possible as well. So someone who experiences the bipolar type of the condition, aka someone like me, will most likely experience both over the course of their illness. For me, hypomania is basically medicated mania, because now that I'm on meds, I don't get those crazy full manic episodes that destroy everything they touch. But now we can put the book away, because I want to tell you a little bit more about what it's like being manic, what it's like being hypomanic. What does it actually look like in the real world? Because now you have some examples of it, you know what's in the book, you know the criteria and everything, but what exactly is it like at ground zero? What's it like for someone who is actually experiencing that high energy, destructive state? So for me, hypomania is basically productivity and motivation to do all of my creative pursuits. I mention on this channel all the time that I'm a cosplayer, so I use that energy to dive into a costume and then do my best to prepare for the depressive state that will inevitably follow. For me, even while medicated, I still have hypomanic highs and dysthymic lows, but everything's well managed, and that's what matters to me. However, full mania for me is a little bit crazier. To start, I don't sew in straight lines. I often make commitments and then start projects that later I will struggle to finish. The wildest things I do when I'm manic is I travel the world with very little warning, and I have done that more than once. And I know traveling around the world sounds like a fun time, and I can tell you it is, because that's the thing about mania, is that it can be fun sometimes. And sure, I'm cooking my brain and I'm not going to remember a half of what I did, but this state, coming first in episodes, is often the hardest to do anything about, because when I'm manic, I feel like that feeling is sustainable and that it will last forever, and why on earth would I ever want to stop that? I mean, I feel like I can do everything I want to do and more. I feel invincible. And that's the thing, a lot of people who are in manic states think they're invincible. They think nothing bad can happen to them. But all of that aside, mania isn't fun for everyone. For some, it just means irritability over everything, and it's a term called agitation that I hear a lot when associating with that irritability feeling. I get agitation when I'm in manic episodes. It's not a defining trait, but I remember in college I was sitting in a physics class and the person next to me had a pencil that had a reflective coating on it, and I remember being irrationally irate, not angry, irate, at that pencil for being too shiny and distracting me, and I wanted nothing more than to grab it, break it, and throw it away. And the thing is, that was just a pencil. It can also be directed at people, and when I'm angry all the time, life is hard. And the thing is, I'll snap at everyone, and I'll say things that I'll regret later, and I'll do things that I'll regret later, and The thing is, that's the disorder talking. That's not Kit making those decisions. That's the chemical imbalance in my brain. And while it may seem that I'm intentionally angry at everyone and everything, and I'm yelling and I'm not doing great in terms of interpersonal relationships, it's literally the disorder. It's not me. It's not me at all. It's a chemical imbalance. It is not a choice. I sometimes describe myself when I'm manic as a horrible friend because I'm not myself when I'm manic. And so, like I've kind of already touched on, I'll say things I don't normally say and I'll do things I don't normally do. And as a result of having an inflated sense of self, I'll sometimes crap on other people. And no one wants that. And then, because of how my brain deals with manic episodes, I will forget most of it, if not all of it. So in episodes, I end up hurting people emotionally, forgetting all about it, and then at the end of the episode, when my brain actually gets back online to where it should be, I'm left wondering why these people are treating me differently. And so for me, mania is this no consequences, fleeting, ephemeral state. When I'm manic, I don't think about the good or the bad outcomes of my choices. I'm thinking about what I want in that moment, and I want that thing right then and there. And a little note, when I'm manic, regular reasoning doesn't necessarily apply to me. And it's not to say someone can't reason with me, that's not what I'm saying at all, but I have such an inflated sense of self, and I feel invincible, and I have all these heightened viewpoints, and if what someone is telling me is any threat of that at all, irritability might arise, and I will, like I said before, I'll start snapping at people and doing things I wouldn't normally do, and no one wants that. And so to conclude this video, mania is a very complicated thing with lots of different symptoms that seem simple at first. And it's even more complicated when you experience it because it's different for everyone. So if you get hypomanic or manic, what are you like? Do you also have this irritability thing? Do you also feel invincible? What's it like for you? And of course, there is the comment section down below. You guys know I am in there after every single video, so you can talk there. But if that's too public for you, you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at schizoaffective, and I love talking to you guys about mental health. But other than that, thank you for joining me and making the uncomfortable comfortable. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I hope you care about mania at this point. Let me know if you do. But yeah, I'm just gonna go. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.